For more on all of the latest developments, now let's go to a sitting member of Congress himself. Republican Scott Perry from Pennsylvania joins us now. Sir, good to have you back on the program.
Well, it's great to be with you, Vince. And, yeah, things are moving quickly here. We all actually thought that they were going to move the vote from tomorrow morning up till this afternoon because, you know, the disinfecting light of sunshine and revelation was killing all support for it. But I think it might be that the whole thing is completely collapsed right now. And, of course, you know, this was set up predictably. Like, you know, you've been in Washington for a little while. Every single year we do this pre-Christmas omnibus. I don't care what you call it. That's what this is, where, you know, it's a few days before Christmas. Everybody's got to get home. Nobody wants to be in Washington, D.C. They want to be back at their homes. And so there's the pressure of that. And, of course, there's also the immediate pressure of the jailbreak. So while we were talking about maybe having to vote on it by Friday so that we had actually time to read 1,500 pages, members are signaling that they're leaving town. They're not staying. And so then that pressurizes leadership to move it up beyond, you know, inside the 72 hours. So not only is it a huge monstrosity of spending and an orgy of policy and left-wing extortion, but you don't get the chance to read it, and it just gets jammed through. And this is how it's done here. And we have fought it. We warned our new speaker, like, let's deal with this last fall. Remember, we were running out of money last fall at the end of September. Let's not wait until Christmas, where predictably, you know, the clock's ticking. Everybody's got to get home. And, you know, I don't care what you say. Yeah. It's not going to be simple, and everything's going to be hooked to this thing like a Christmas tree, and we're going to jam it up the, up the chimney.
Yeah, and one of the other pieces here is that I'd like to know is how is something like this put together? Because in the end, I'm looking, we're finding out all of the contours of this gigantic spending package. And it includes things like giveaways to ethanol. It includes millions of dollars for tests of molasses purity. It includes censorship operation spending of the American people. It includes legal immunity for members of Congress, pay raises for members of Congress, increased health benefits for members of Congress, biolab funding. The list is completely endless. And I'm wondering, Congressman Scott Perry, were you consulted at all? Like, who puts this thing together? Did they go to each individual member of Congress and say, hey, what would you like in this thing?
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm over here howling, laughing. No, we're not consulted. This is what's called a four corners deal, which is bad enough in of itself. So what the four corners are, the leaders of the House, so that's the Speaker and the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, gets together with the Leader of the Senate, which is Schumer, and then the Minority Leader, which in this case is McConnell, who not sure what his status is. But and they negotiate this, but it's actually not those people. It's actually their staff members. So elected members aren't even in the room. We're not even consulted whatsoever. So they put this whole thing together. It started with a continuing resolution, but then, we needed disaster funding. And every time you need something, then the other side wants something. And they usually want double what you want, because here's the thing, Vince. If you're not going to countenance any shutdown for any purpose at any time, for any reason, for any length, the other side knows that they can just keep upping the ante. And so then disaster relief got put on it. Well, we have farmers that have had losses for 3 years and they can't afford to put crops in the ground. So we needed billions of dollars for loans for them. Well, when you ask for something, the other side says, well, we need 10 times whatever you want. And that's how you go from a clean CR just to get you into March into the new administration to hundreds of billions of dollars in additional spending. That's just how it goes.
So help me out, because my understanding of Congress consists of Schoolhouse Rock. I believe you're known as a legislator. Are you telling me that the legislators have nothing to do with writing legislation whatsoever?
No, we find out about it. As a matter of fact, we got text, I think, last night. Including like a $25 billion health care supplemental for some things that we probably voted for. There's probably some good stuff, but no pay for us for any of the stuff. All in total, 1,500 and some pages, and then start reading, because we're not even going to adhere to the 72-hour rule. And right now we might not even adhere to the 24-hour rule. And that's, no legislators don't get a chance to legislate. We get a chance to vote and have an opinion and go out and support something, but it's all about extortion and leverage around here.
Yeah, it sure is. So, okay, how big of a deal is Elon Musk and company and Vivek Ramaswamy, the Department of Government Efficiency? They mounted a pretty awesome campaign very quickly against all of this. How meaningful is that?
I got to tell you, so I've been at this enterprise for a little while, and we've done the same thing every time. We being the Freedom Caucus and those kind of people that are, in the Senate and affiliated of the same mindset. And we have essentially lost on every single opportunity. We just get overwhelmed messaging-wise and so on and so forth. But Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy, with the bandwidth that they have, they joined the bandwagon at the 11th hour here and have completely upended. This is upending the establishment, the swamp, the uniparty. In 4 hours, it's completely destroyed the cultured class in Washington, D.C. that demands that we pay our taxes and shut our mouths. It's a game changer.
It sure seems like it. Are there any lessons here for the incoming Congress? What should all of these Republicans who are going to be in the majority in both the House and the Senate take from all of this?
What they should take from all this is that President Trump, number one, has a mandate. This is his majority in the House and the Senate, number one. Number two, all the things they campaigned on that they said they were going to do, they're going to actually have an opportunity to do. And when they do what they normally do, which is say one thing during the campaign and then come to Washington and do something else, I think that's going to be off the table, and they're having a strong dose of that reality right now.
How do we get to a point where, just to go back for a moment to this 1,500-page bill, how do we get to a point where you've got Republicans supporting the extension of what's known as the Global Engagement Center? This is the federal government-funded censorship operation that has hurt so many conservatives. How did Republicans end up supporting that?
Well, because it's just included in the package, and if you don't want the government shut down, so you don't want to be accused of shutting the government down. That's what happens if you don't vote for this thing. You're accused of shutting the government down. If you don't want that, if you want the relief for the farmers in your district, and if you want the disaster relief, if you live in Georgia or North Carolina or Florida, if you want that stuff, then you've got to swallow these other Democrat priorities. And so they just live in perpetuity.
Yes.
Because this is how we do things. We don't pass. I got to tell you, the Senate passes 0 appropriations bills. So how does the House, who doesn't pass all of them, but at least we pass some of them, how do you have a partner to even negotiate with when they simply refuse to do their job and get away with it year after year after year? The press says nothing about the Senate passing no appropriations bills. That's where these things are supposed to be adjudicated and meted out, but it never happens. And so you have literally 4 people in the House and the Senate determining the spending for the whole year for the whole entire government. And guess what? Those people that are in charge love that. They don't want any of that to change.
Congressman, it's also very cowardly that you have this disaster spending on places like the Southeast United States lumped in with a continuing resolution. What that means is Congress is using the suffering of our fellow Americans as a means to sort of grease the tracks for other out of control spending, doesn't it?
Well, that's exactly what it means. Look, oftentimes, none of these bills are perfect, right? And so you got to say on balance, is it better than it's bad? But I will tell you, there are a lot of members that say, why even buy insurance anymore? If the federal government's in charge of paying for all disasters in the country, we know disasters are coming. Right. We do no planning for it. And people that are afflicted eventually get made whole by the federal government. And there's no constitutional authority to do that.
Yes.
It's 82 days after the hurricane hit. It's 82 days these people have been living out in tents, and they've waited till the last minute by design for the purposes of extortion. That's exactly why we are where we are. We urged and we begged the Speaker months ago to deal with this stuff then so we weren't like rats on a sinking ship.
Yeah.
But indecision and poor decision and cowardice gets you what we got right now.
So Thomas Massey came out earlier. He became the first Republican, I believe, to voice opposition to Mike Johnson becoming Speaker again come January 3rd. Do you think Speaker Johnson is in for a tough battle to retake the helm? What's going to happen come January?
Well, I don't think there are any Democrats that are going to support Mike Johnson. I might be wrong about that, but unfortunately, those who are keeping score are watching, and on these big bills that we've passed habitually, there have been more Democrats in support than Republicans. And there are a lot of Republicans that say, why are we in the majority if you keep on doing things that the Democrats demand? That's not what the American people gave us the majority for. I'm not voting for people that continue to do that. And so I think it can still be pulled out of the fire, but Mike Johnson, I think, has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, and Matt Boyle over at Breitbart News today was pointing to all the times that Mike Johnson has made some big promises, and then when push came to shove, he fell backwards. And that could include the spending fights in the spring and in the fall, and now the one we're witnessing at the moment. The FISA fight in the spring, where surveillance of Americans continued after a big fight over that. Ukraine aid being passed once again in the summer over the opposition of Americans who don't want to see that money given away endlessly without any explanation. And so this just keeps on happening, Congressman, and I can see why an appetite for maybe a change in leadership is growing again.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, you're keeping the score, so are members of Congress, and they don't like it, and they don't see how, A, they can support those things because they have to go face their constituents, and probably to a bigger point, they don't understand or see how anything's going to change. If this is the way it is now, why should they believe under this current leadership it would be any different in the future? And I think those are reasonable positions to have, and certainly reasonable questions to ask. Now, we've got some time before we get to January 3rd,
yes.
But like I told Kevin McCarthy a couple of years ago, you let these guys hang out there like this and they get cemented in concrete in their position, and you can't move them off of it. I've watched this happen. I've been through it.
And finally, Congressman Scott Perry, what do you think should happen by this weekend? Should Republicans be willing to play hardball and allow the government to go into the dreaded shutdown that everybody always keeps fear-mongering about?
So we don't want a shutdown. Republicans don't want one, aren't asking for one, but we should play hardball because understand this, Vince, the American people can't afford their own lives, their groceries, their gasoline, their electricity bills. They can't afford anything anymore because of government spending. Every 100 days, we add $1 trillion. You have to break the cycle. If Chuck Schumer and the Democrats don't want to vote for responsibly keeping the government open, then they should own that. And the Republican Party should give them the opportunity to fish or cut bait on that. But it's going to take some courage on behalf of our leadership to tee that up.
Well, perhaps they're hearing you right now in Washington. Thank you very much, Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, the House Freedom Caucus. Good to have you on the program as always, sir.